Hi, I just wanted to make this video to sort of wrap up everything to do with the RACE method class. And this will be a quick overview for anyone who wasn't able to come to the RACE method class as well. The RACE method is a great method for how to communicate with effectively with people that you disagree with, specifically around racial issues, although it can be used for other things as well, like communicating with someone that you disagree with on environmental issues or political issues. It's just all around a great method. It was invented by Dr. David Campt, who called it fighting racism one conversation at a time. And he put together what he called an anti-racism boot camp for white people. And this is specifically, you can see the Unitarian Universalist edition. So what we got out of this basically is that there is the RACE method, R.A.C.E, stands for R stands for reflect, A stands for ask, C stands for connect, and E stands for expand. All you need to remember. It's just a handy little thing. So whenever you are confronted by someone and you want to engage them, so that's the first piece. R, reflect. I can point to it. R, reflect. There. So Dr. David Camp starts off by saying that social sciences have found that 55% of Americans right now, white Americans, 55% of white Americans say that racial issues are just as serious for white people in America as they are for any other group of people. Now, that itself is a form of racism. It's a form of racism to not recognize that there is a group that has a little more power or a lot more power, depending on the situation, and there are oppressed groups that do not have power in the situation. So this RACE method is specifically for interacting with someone who is a denier that there is a problem. This is not, you're not going to change, someone's mind. You're not going to run into the KKK or, go to somebody who's a flat out racist. This is not for that. This is for if you're communicating with someone, especially someone that you have to keep interacting with. So you could use the RACE method for a stranger in the grocery store, but it's more likely you're going to want to use it for a family member, a neighbor, someone that you work with, someone that you have to keep interacting with, and you hear them say these racially problematic things. Again, doesn't have to necessarily be about race. This could be, problematic things in lots of different ways. They could be sexist. They could, I don't know, but we're going to focus on race. But just remember that this can be used for all sorts of issues. So imagine you're in that situation. Someone says something very problematic around denying that there is an issue. What is this deal with kneeling during football? These people are already rich. What are they protesting? What's their problem? Everything's fine. Kind of gets your hackles up. You know that you're in this moment where you're going to think about using the RACE method because you can feel in your body that you're starting to feel upset. Whether for you, that shows up in tightness in the chest, an upset stomach, your head. You know your body, and you know where you feel tension and upset when someone says something problematic. So we're going to pause and reflect. When our natural reaction tends to be fight or flight. When we're upset about something, we've all heard of fight or flight. Our natural reaction tends to be to argue and fight with that person or to be like, I'm out of here. I'm not going to engage. Now, sometimes the appropriate thing is to leave and not engage. And the RACE method has all sorts of great help for how to come back later to a conversation, even to a conversation where you've said something that maybe you regret saying or not. That's all details I'm not going to get into in this video, but it's Dr. David Campt is really good at knowing how to have these conversations that engage people and get people to listen. So the first thing, when you're feeling that fight or flight, when you're ready to either run away or jump into an argument, you're going to recognize that about yourself and you're going to reflect. Or the R can also be for relax. You're going to get yourself ready for a conversation. You're going to reflect, am I going to have this conversation right now? Maybe it's Thanksgiving and I don't want to upset Nana. So I'm going to just put this all on the back burner and have this conversation with this person later. So the R, the reflecting, might mean we're not going to do the rest, the R.A.C.E today, but the R.A.C.E will happen another day. So reflect. Then when you are ready to have the conversation, which may be immediately, or maybe after some deep breathing, or maybe after several days of reflecting, at whatever point you are ready to go from reflect to ask, you ask them. You're going to want to tell them that they're wrong. We all want to tell them that they're wrong. Let's go back to that first example. I am your cousin and I am sitting at the Thanksgiving table and I'm going, why do these guys in football have to kneel all the time? What is their problem? I know they're talking about Black Lives Matter and racism and whatever, but they're rich. They're fine. What are they even complaining about? There isn't really even racism anymore. That's the sort of issue that we're talking about. Someone that is denying that there is a problem. You're going to calm yourself down. And if you are able to feel within yourself, I think I can engage this person without being too upset right now. What you're going to do is you're going to ask, rather than being like, Meg, what the heck? You're so wrong. You're going to pull back and you're going to ask and you're going to say, dear cousin, I'm curious, what brought you to think that way? What makes you think that you say that there's no or hardly any racism anymore? Can you tell me more about that? And what you want to hone in on is about their experience, because the person will likely initially go straight to facts, but they won't really be facts, will they? They'll be facts that this person heard somewhere, Fox News or somewhere. They may say, well, everybody knows that there's no racism. Everybody knows that. And you really want to get them to a personal experience. Sure, okay, I hear you. But I just want to know, like, did you have an example or do you know somebody? Like, what happened? Tell me a story. What happened? Tell me a story. You want to try to get that person to tell you their own personal, I was in downtown Baltimore and there were these Black ladies and they gave me a look and I don't know what their problem was. They were hating me just because I was white. What is their problem? It's not my fault. It's not my fault that they have a hard time. There's a story. Or, my sister tried to get into this and such college and she couldn't get in. And I'm sure it's because they had quotas and some Black person or Mexican person got in. And it's so unfair. It's hard for us too. Okay. So again, we're not talking outright, I hate a certain minority type racism. We're talking, I'm frustrated. I'm a white person and I'm denying that there is a problem or that the problem is as severe as it is. I'm saying, why are they complaining? We have it bad too, or whatever. And then you get me to tell my story. A, ask about their experiences. Let's jump over to connect. So once the person has told you their story, there is social science also backs this up, that there is something about humans that are very reciprocal in social situations. And if you have listened politely to them, no matter what they have said, and it may be very frustrating and very hard to stay polite, but if you listen politely to them, they will generally feel that they owe you also listening. This isn't true for everyone, but generally for most people, this is a social science thing. It's backed up, that there's a reciprocity assumed. So you've listened to their story. Now you're going to have a story. And this is where you've already planned in advance. You're going to relate a personal story that they will find partially affirming of their viewpoint. This is hard. This is hard for us, especially us as white people, to admit that we've done wrong, or we've been in that position before, that we all have a little bit of racism in us. This is where you're going to pull that out in your own story. You're going to affirm. There's something in what they said that you can affirm, believe it or not. And you're going to find that. You're going to say, yes, you're right. Racism is not as bad as it used to be. This is a piece that's very difficult for liberals often, especially white liberals, to admit. Because often we feel like if we admit that the other side is right, that maybe things aren't as bad as they used to be, we worry that we're losing ground in the argument. But we're not. This is how we get them to listen. Because it's true, and we need to admit it, and we need to celebrate it. Generally, overall, yes, things have gotten better in the past 100 years. Things are not the same as far as racism in America that they were like in 1922. Yes, things have improved. We can agree on that. So what you're going to do here is you're going to tell your story. You're going to tell a story that agrees with them. You're going to say, and this is personal to you, you're going to have this figured out ahead of time. When I was a kid, A, B, and C happened. That would never happen now. Things have changed. You're right. When I was a kid, I knew someone who regularly used the N-word. Or when I was a kid, remember in this movie that it was considered appropriate to make fun of so-and-so for their skin color. Or we all have these stories about racial progress. And that's what we're going to do. We're also going to make it personal. You're going to think of your own self and times when you had implicit bias. We all have biases. There was a great, great quote by Jesse Jackson who talked about walking down the street and realizing there was a person walking behind him. And when he turned and saw that it was a black man, he felt a little scared and quickened his pace and immediately felt terrible about it. Now, if Jesse Jackson had that experience, we can admit that many of us have had that experience. Even if you haven't, you can tell that story. Feel free to borrow Jesse Jackson's story in order to connect with this person that you're speaking to. So you're going to have two stories. You're going to have one that is about, yes, you're right, person who expects me to argue with you. I'm going to surprise you by agreeing with you instead. You're right. Racism has gotten better. Yay. Story number 2. Don't give them a chance to talk yet, right? Hey, I'm surprising you by agreeing with you. And I'm going to tell you, I've actually been a little racist in the past. I'm trying to be better now. I am. But we all have a little racist in us. That's what it is to be an American, a United States American. So you've told a story, and then you're going to expand on the story. So your personal understanding, that's the second story I'm talking about, that invites them to a new understanding of the issue. So you can smoothly go from telling the story or telling your two stories to, therefore, hopefully, we can try to make things better. Therefore, right? You're saying, yes, things have gotten better in the past, and I haven't been great. So let's work together to look at this and try to make it happen and make things better. How can we improve? So I am going to click forward, and there are a couple of screens I'm just going to go right through because I was going to show videos, but I'm not going to now. And here we go. Next frame. No, just keep going. Don't play it. Just keep going. Okay, here we go. Okay, now, race. Put it together. R, relaxing and reflecting before engaging. A, asking a question about their experience. C, connect by telling a story that the person likely agrees with. Your racial progress story, your inherent bias story. 4, expand by telling another story which will invite the person into a new way of thinking. So finally, we have, if we were going to role play, this is how it would go. Here I am, your semi-racist cousin. I make a racially problematic statement. We had a black president. What are black people complaining about? We're going to reflect. This is the moment when you may walk away and come back another day. And you're going to ask for a personal story. Can you tell me why you think that? And the person is going to probably not tell you a story. They're probably going to say, well, everybody knows that. I saw it on Breitbart or whatever. And you're going to have to push and say, sure. But, like, have you had an experience? I'm just really curious. Like, what sorts of experiences have you had? Especially if the person is saying something like, well, I don't know why black people are complaining so much. White people have it just as bad. Right? That's the kind of thing we're going to calm ourselves, reflect, get that personal story. What's the experience? Did something happen? Can you tell me a story? Racist cousin says, yes, one time blah, blah, blah happened, and it was really hard for me because I was white. You're doing your deep listening. Deep listening. Wow, I can see why that was hard for you. I had an experience like that once too, actually. I have to say, I agree with you on that point. Not everything you're saying, but I do agree with you on that. And since we both agree that things have gotten better over time, but we both agree that it's not 100% better, what can we do? What can we do to make it better? So this is where we go. R.A.C.E. Very simple, very easy, no problem. So there are further resources. AllyConversationToolkit.com and RacialEquityTools.org both have a lot of help and a lot of resources on this sort of thing if you're interested in learning more, such as what it meant on the last slide, where I think I said something about the apologetic non-apology. There's lots more. But the easy, simple part, R-A-C-E, reflect, ask, connect, expand. You don't have to get it perfect. If you just remember these pieces, you can have conversations with people who disagree with you about things. You're not necessarily going to change their mind. What you're going to do is surprise them by not arguing. Surprise them by actually agreeing a little bit, getting them to listen to you just a little bit. You may not totally change their mind, but you're going to get them thinking, and they're going to walk away from you going, doing a little bit of extra thinking. So if you have any other questions, feel free to email me, call me, be in touch. I would love to keep talking about the RACE method, but also check out there. I'm trying to do it. Check out these websites that are right there. Thank you so much. Bye.